Good morning. I'm I'm the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. I'm the lead minister of this congregation, and I am so honored to lead worship with all of you today, with Chris and with Allison and with Gordon, who just dropped a piano flourish into Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit that I have never heard before. That was awesome. It takes so many people to make Sunday mornings happen. We've got brand new members of the AV Club, and behind the scenes, yeah, it's awesome. And behind the scenes, Sunday mornings, both here in worship and in our time afterward in connection, is the work of many hands. This is what it means to be the church. We are not a building, but a people with a purpose. And here at First Unitarian, our mission is through spiritual connection in community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation. And we serve together with love and humility. We begin our services by acknowledging that we gather here in person on Haudenosaunee land, the keepers of the Western Door, the Seneca people. If you're new or newish here, I invite you to connect in the chat or at our welcome desk. And if you're here because you're worried about yourself or about someone you love, I invite you to connect with one of our chaplains here on Sunday mornings. We've got a lot going on at First Unitarian, and so I invite you to stick around, connect in small groups, get to know each other, and then throughout the week, stay updated through our newsletter and social media. Okay, are you all ready for Sunday? It's going to be a weird one. We started with Jefferson Airplane, so that should tip you off. Let's take a deep breath together as we say our chalice lighting words. And again, we are using the same words that our children and youth are using upstairs. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
Reverend Sherry texted me on Wednesday, said, I'm going to be preaching on LSD and mushrooms on Sunday. Do you want a WA? I said, do we all have to be on LSD and mushrooms or just you? My name is Chris Dorso. My pronouns are he, him, and his. 1 year ago today, yesterday rather, I should say, came up in my time hop yesterday. I work very hard. I came out a year and a half ago, and I work very hard every day. I go through a half dozen outfits every morning to just kind of blend in, as much as this blends in. Because, hard as it is to believe, I try not to stand out. Like, I just try to go about my day. I just being true to who I am and just going about my business, as a middle-aged white guy working in middle management at a college. And so it was a year ago yesterday, we were walking through our student union out at Brockport on our way to get coffee, and I was very focused, mostly because these boots were new, and they were a little taller heel than I was used to wearing, and I was just really kind of very focused on staying in my space and not tripping. And as we were walking through the student union, a couple of students caught my attention, and they said, wow, we really love your outfit. And isn't that why we come to church? Because there is magic in those moments where you don't even see them coming. And I didn't even realize at the time how much that meant to me. I remember every single detail of that interaction. And it was such a throwaway interaction at the time, probably for the group of young women who reached out. But to me, it meant absolutely everything in that moment, to be seen and to be recognized and sort of yeeted out of my personal, inwardness. And so that's why we're here, to share in those moments. And so as we start today, I want you to take a moment and turn to the person next to you and compliment them. Well, I was going to say tell them you like their smile, but everybody's got masks. Pretend you like their smile, or their hair, or their style, or something. Turn to your neighbor, say hello, make friends. We're glad you're here.
Sherry. Why is my thing flashing red? Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
I love. Hey, mic change. Mine ran out of batteries. I love how you all are being friendly to each other. And now I invite you all to please rise in body, mind, or spirit, and we will sing our first hymn together, Let There Be Light. Let there be light, let there be understanding, let all the nations gather, let them be face to face. Open our lips, open our minds to ponder, open the door of concord, opening into grace. Perish the sword, perish the angry judgment, perish the bombs and hunger, perish the fight for gain. Let there be light, open our hearts to wonder, perish the way of terror, hallow the world God made. You may be seated.
In the spring, I preached about friendship, about the horrible risk and repetition that making connection in this lonely world requires. And we try to incorporate as often as we can into our services, into our Sunday morning gatherings, practices that we repeat. Singing is one of them, but not everybody, and I know, it might not be God, but it is me. I know that some of you are just mouthing the words. So we try to do a variety. We try to do a variety of practices. And indeed, our connection hour after worship today focuses on embodied practices. So there's meditation and labyrinth walking and a dance party with me right here in the sanctuary. And so in the spirit of risk and repetition, I return to the embodied practice that I shared with you on that day in the spring, where I helped us shake out of the norm and learn a dance move together. So you're welcome to stand if you'd like. You can also do this seated. And this dance move is called Big Fish, Little Fish. Some of you may remember it. So you start with a big fish, and then you get a little fish. And then, as you always do with your fish, you put it in a box. You put it in a box. And then you put it on the shelf. You put it on the shelf. Let's do that again. Big fish, little fish, put in a box, put in a box, put it on the shelf, put it on the shelf. Big fish, little fish, put it in a box, put it in a box, put it on the shelf, put it on the shelf. All right, you are all ready. And I can see you're all like dancing. We are such pros. We don't need to come to that dance party. We are going to go meditate with the Buddhists in the Thoreau room. You have choices after worship. We don't put everything that stinks on the shelf in religious community. As we tip in this week to the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, we're reminded this week that when things go wrong or afoul or out of alignment with the people that you care about, sometimes you have to take down what you've put away and re-examine it. So I invite you in the spirit of prayer and meditation to join me in settling your body, having danced out some jitters. Spirit of life and love, source of endings and beginnings, God of many names, no name at all, and one abundant love. We come to this sacred place and this holy hour with nervous laughter and joyful hugs and old grief. Some of us bring pain in our bones or worry for the world. We hold in our hearts all those suffering or recovering already from Hurricane Ian, from hurricanes that go less reported, both the big climate storms and the personal tornadoes that breeze through our lives. We hold in love all those who are wrestling with pain, addiction, loneliness, or grief. And here in this space, a place where we can grow to be known and to know others, we're invited to call to mind a time over the past week where we failed to live out of our deepest values, where we were more petty or frustrated or lacked compassion than we would have liked. Here in the presence of community, I invite you to set down that burden. Here in the face of those who love us and a love that knew us before we had a name, may we rise again to a fresh day, knowing that second chances, third chances, and opportunities to try anew abound. Here in community, we are invited to bring to mind a time this past week where we were all that we thought we could be, where we were loving or courageous or compassionate. And if we struggle to find a time, let that time be right now. You are enough. And everything that needs to be done is happening right now. May this well of possibility guide our future days. May we seek to find renewal and peace. May we find ourselves held in the palm of love, and may we return this compassion to our wider world. May it be so. So I invite you to open your eyes and prepare to rise if you would like, or type into the chat as we enter now into ritual, to bring whatever it is that is on our hearts and lay it onto the altar of community presence. Whatever grief or growth or gratitude is alive within you, you're invited to share that in the chat, or come to our center aisles and light a candle. And if you would like an usher to bring a candle to you, simply raise your hand. May we now share in this ritual of community care and witness.
hold in our hearts for ourselves and for each other. All that we hold for the world is held here in community and by a love that will not let us go. Amen, and blessed be.
Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Hurricane Ian has impacted the southeastern United States this week, and the recovery will take days, weeks, months, maybe longer. Because of climate change, disasters have been impacting our congregations and their communities with increasing rapidity. The UUA's Disaster Relief Fund is a concrete, material way that Unitarian Universalists show up for and support our fellow UUs and their communities as they recover from these growing climate disasters. Currently, the fund is near depletion, and we are getting urgent requests from congregations for help. Please consider donating this morning to our UUA's Disaster Relief Fund so that we can keep saying yes to each other in this time of need. You can donate either here in person, in the baskets, which are now being passed, or online at rochesterunitarian.org/donate. Thank you for your generosity. It will make an immediate difference.
hundreds gathered to hear a Good Friday sermon by the incredible theologian, professor, and preacher Howard Thurman. This mentor of Martin Luther King's was an incredible preacher, and his sermon, which went for over 80 minutes, which mine will not, sent at least one person rushing to the street, so ready to proclaim the coming of Christ that this person was moved to tell everyone that he encountered. That person was on mushrooms. So were 9 other people in a controlled experiment, a partnership between Boston University and Harvard, led by none other than Timothy Leary and the person who most of us now know as Ram Dass. 20 seminarians, 20 people studying to go into ministry, 20 guides of the Spirit were invited into this experiment to sit right in the front row, and 10 of them would be given mushrooms and 10 of them a placebo. Now, very shortly after the research on psilocybin, both LSD and mushrooms was shut down. And so the follow-up study was never officially conducted by the researchers. But Mike Young, a Unitarian Universalist minister who participated in the study, participated in an informal follow-up 10 years later. They'd been told at that point which of them had been given the placebo and which had experienced taking psilocybin, and 8 of those who had taken mushrooms that day were still in ministry. 5 of the others were still in ministry. Those odds are not great, but the odds for staying in ministry were better still than Mike's predictions about who might have a religious experience while listening to a sermon. This study, done primarily by psychologists and people with a more hard science, biological mind, assumed that seminarians would be the most likely to be willing to open the doors of perception. But Mike, who knew something of what it meant to be a minister, thought, well, these people are probably the least likely to have a religious experience on mushrooms. Despite his skepticism, that doesn't seem to be the case, though many, sober or tripping, found inspiration and hope in that 85-minute sermon. Those who tripped during the sermon found themselves open to a new sense of felt belonging in the web of connection. As Unitarian Universalists, foundational to our belief system, to our way of being, to what it means to be a community is not to do drugs, but to believe in the interdependent web, the web of mutuality that connects all of us, person to person, human to non-human animal, embodied, moving, living creatures to everything that surrounds us. This is a foundational truth for us. One of the few clear claims we make that we support as a theological claim that, of course, there's no doctrinal test that says if you don't believe this, you'll be kicked out. But it is something we often assume that everyone here believes in. And yet, what I know to be true based on my own experience and that which so many of us, so many of you tell me, is that you might believe it, but you don't feel it. I'm seeing a lot of head nods. There is a big difference between believing in belonging to one another and feeling it deep in our bones. And those seminarians on that day, they knew that too, because they too had lived that. But Reverend Mike Young, that Unitarian Universalist, Unitarian at the time, minister, well, suddenly he had an experience of belonging that wasn't merely theoretical or abstract, but real and felt and healing. Soon after that experiment, the criminalization of psilocybin and other psychedelics as Schedule I drugs shut down that research and much of its popular use. A Nixon administration official explained as much in coverage later in the late 80s as a political gambit. The war on drugs was not only ineffective in stopping drug use, it was also never meant to do that. Instead, it was meant to help this administration and others combat the political problems that were ever present. This official named two clear public enemies when it came to the hearts and minds of the American people: leftist hippies and black people. He admitted openly that you can't just go around criminalizing these two groups of people, but you can pretty easily find ways to attach things that are then thought to be moral sins, and thus the war on drugs. Pot and LSD and other drugs moved from something that could be abused, yes, but also used safely and in the company of others, to something shameful and underground, and more likely to be misused and abused, and certainly more likely to be misused and abused by authorities and having ripped families apart through the war on drugs. We find ourselves now in another wave, another political and scientific era where psilocybin and other types of psychedelic use are becoming more widespread. This week, I posted on Facebook about my wife having been hospitalized and having a lot of pain. She's okay. Thank you so much for those who have experienced concern. And more than a dozen of you privately messaged me to ask me about whether or not she was using cannabis. Some had concerns about whether or not that was dropping her blood pressure too low, and some offered it as a helpful solution in your own life that she might try for pain. It's clear that not just cannabis, but psychedelic use is, if not ordinary and everyday, within the mainstream. Whether it's you or your spouse or your kids or your neighbor, more and more people are using these substances. I say this not to you to encourage you to use drugs or to condone illegal activities. But what we do know is that there is increasing research that cannabis, ketamine, MDMA, LSD, and psilocybin, the active ingredient in mushrooms, when used in places and settings that can be healing, are effective tools, one among many. And what we all know of other legal drugs is not every tool is for every person, but that these are within a toolbox that are providing relief and healing for people suffering from depression, anxiety, fear of death in hospice patients, and trauma of many types. Here in religious community, we are theoretically, if not in a felt sense, interested in, seeking, and open to transformation. It's a part of our mission. We claim to be open to wonder and transformation, and yet, like that sense of belonging, what we claim is so often hard to feel. What we want desperately for our lives is difficult to open to. Psychedelics provide one pathway for many people, but they are but one pathway. For those who are sitting in their seats nervous that I am, you think, telling you to use drugs, I decidedly am not, unless you have found them to be useful to you. The healing possibilities that we find with psilocybin in increasing and controlled responsible studies coming out of places like Johns Hopkins suggest that long-term, trained, and repeated spiritual practices like meditation have similar effects. It's true, something like mushrooms might work faster, but something like meditation offers more of a fighting chance at integrating the learning and healing that one does on a daily basis through to the next time. Each time we open a door and move through it, walking or rolling or just peeking our head around the corner to see what might be possible, each time we shed an old story that no longer serves us, each time we try a new experience or make a new friend, we are a different person than the person we were a year, a month, or a minute ago. And to integrate and move through that takes time and it takes practice. Whether it's meditation or some other avenue, opening to transformation is something that we encourage here in spiritual community and we support each other through. It is not without risk. It is not without reward. Some of the research on psilocybin use has focused specifically on trauma, specifically on those working through war-related, combat-related PTSD, and those currently in hospice who are, whether they're planning to or not, soon to die. Because it is in these moments, in these places, in these journeys of the soul where we find ourselves most stuck. That meditation and psychedelics have a similar effect is not merely a coincidence, but also, as best as we can tell at this moment, a neurological parallel. There is a part of our brains that keeps us stuck on our emotions, our reactions. When something happens to us or we think of something, some of us, because of meditation practice or general disposition or whatever it is that allows us to do this, we're able to observe that thought or that feeling and then let it pass us by. But most of us ruminate. Most of us get stuck. Buddhism holds that attachment in this sense is the source of human suffering, and most Buddhist practice aims to relieve us of that suffering by relieving us of this attachment, by helping us to practice this sense that what might arise need not stay forever. Psychedelics, for those who do not have a well-developed meditation practice, provide similar pathways to release. Here in spiritual community, I close with an image brought by the novelist Tom Robbins, who concerns himself through his own characters with only 3 human states: amnesia, euphoria, and ecstasy. Amnesia is when you don't know who you are, but you desperately want to know. I think this describes the spiritual state of many people. On a deep sense, even if you remember your name and the details of your life, wanting to know more deeply who you are is a longing that many of us share, that brings us here into this community to probe more deeply our interior lives and find out how we are connected to everything around us. Euphoria, well, euphoria means you still don't know who you are, but you really don't care. Which has some appeal, but it's not actually what we're going for here. May I commend to you ecstasy. Not MDMA or whatever street name that drug is going by, but ecstasy, the spiritual state of knowing exactly who you are because you have done the spiritual work of probing your past, your future, your desires, your longings, and your fears. And still not caring. The ego, this sense of self, this sense of who you were 1 year or 1 month or 1 minute ago. It is both true and it is not the sum total of all you can be and who you are in relation to others. Whether you feel it or not, you are deeply and intricately connected with every single person here in this room, in this community, with every single tree in Washington Grove or here in our grounds, with every single note of music and every photon of light. May you know and feel yourself to be within this great and beautiful body of the world. Amen, and may it be so.
In that spirit of connection, I invite you all to rise to sing together our closing hymn. Once when my heart was passion-free.
Once when my heart was passion-free.
That hymn really sounds like it's on shrooms. I won't make you stand for too long, but I just want to take this opportunity to remind you to weave yourself into the connection of this community. So after service, after we close our worship here, please join one of our connection groups. Whether you're online or in person, we hope that you will get to know each other to create a place where you are known and can be known. Let us extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the lighted truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, go in love, go knowing that the connections that pulse between the cells and synapses of your own body beat in rhythm with the connections between you and me and everyone else. I love you. I hope that you feel that. Go in peace. Amen.